What's going on, guys? Today we're going to do a bit of a video on a steak. We're going to do a steak review. As a lot of you know, a lot of my viewers know that I'm a qualified butcher, so I work in a retail wholesale butcher shop. And a common question we get asked a fair bit is which steak to use for which meal and benefits of steaks. And a lot of people are unsure, and rightfully so. If you're not a butcher or you haven't worked in a trade, you wouldn't really have a good idea. But we get asked a lot which steak would be best for which meal, and how much fat is on particular steaks. And if you've already come into 2024 with a New Year's resolution of trying to shred a few kilos, obviously you want leaner cuts of meat. You don't want to be eating a whole lot of fat. Today we're going to do a little bit of a video on that to give you a better understanding of what to eat in particular. So as you can see here, we're just focusing on the quality cuts of steak. So obviously I know there is a lot more steak on a beast than what we've got here, but this is the prime quality cuts that you'll find on the on your beast. So as you know, a lot of you might know that porterhouse and eye fillet both come off a T-bone. So your eye fillet is always that smaller part of your T-bone, and your porterhouse is the larger part of your T-bone, also known as sirloin or strip loin. It can be called a few things, depends where you're from, but here in Queensland it's usually known as sirloin or porterhouse, and we've got your eye fillet that comes off the other side of your T-bone. So here we have a rump as well, that's a rump steak, and over here we have our rib fillet. So these are your four most common cuts that you'll find in a butcher shop, the four most common quality cuts. So starting with the porterhouse, we're going to do a bit of a cook up here as well, and show you the finished process of cooking them as well. But right now, so our porterhouse, as you can see, you have a nice strip of fat going around the outside there. Now this steak, in my personal opinion, is probably one of my favourites to eat. You get a bit of the best of both. You got that fat around the outside like you do with the rump also, but as you can see, the actual fillet is quite lean itself. Doesn't have a lot of gristle in it at all. It's pretty consistent. You got a nice meat there the whole way through. So that's really nice if you're going to sear it off on the barbecue, and that's a really great cut of meat. Also, if you're into your health and fitness, a good little fact here for your porterhouse is the average porterhouse steak will contain roughly 27 grams of protein to 100 grams of steak. So you could get quite a protein consumption just from eating porterhouse. It is the highest protein based steak you can get. So if you're into your protein, you're trying to shred a few kilos and feel a little bit better, that's the steak I'd be eating, the porterhouse. So don't worry about the fat. If you don't like the flavour of fat, it can always be cut off. The porterhouse contains a high grade of protein. Now we got our rump. Rump is a very versatile cut of steak, so it could be used in you could dice this, you could strip it for stir fries, or obviously you can just use it as steak burgers, sear it off on the barbecue. Makes a great all-round sort of steak. You can do a lot with a rump steak. So both of these cuts come off the hind quarter of beef. So we'll move on down to your eye fillet. Now your eye fillet, obviously it's a very sought after steak. Whenever you hear, you go to a fancy restaurant or something, the eye fillet's always the dearest cut of meat. And that is solely because of how much you actually get out of a beast. You don't get a whole lot of eye fillet, to a whole body, so you sort of got to make a little bit of money on it as well. But it's very lean, as you can see. There's not a whole lot of fat on that. Like that's pretty lean cut of meat. You will not find a leaner cut on a beast. And as far as tenderness goes, it is probably one of the most tender steaks you can get. But yeah, it's once again, it's not something you can exactly just throw on a pan either, like they are. You do have to be very careful how you cook these. They can be easily overcooked. But if you cook these things right, you won't find a better steak. That is a very high quality steak. Now I'll move on to the rib fillet. Now the rib fillet here is the only steak that you won't find on the hind quarter. The rib fillet actually comes from the fore quarter of beef. So in my opinion, rib fillet is, once again, it's a very high profile sort of steak, and I think that's because it's got the best of both worlds. In the fillet, it's pretty lean, it's very tender, and you get that fat as well. So if you like your fat for flavour, and you want to taste that, you love searing the fat off in the pan and getting that flavour through your cut, that's the cut I'd go. That rib fillet's very nice. So you get the tenderness and the flavour as well. The only thing that it sort of beats, in my opinion, I'd rather rib fillet over an eye fillet, just because I like the fat for flavour, and the eye fillet just doesn't have that. To me, it's a little bit bland, a little bit overrated, but I would go a rib fillet over an eye fillet just because of the fat for flavour. But if you're after a nice lean cut of meat and you don't like the fat in your meat, I would go an eye fillet. But so that's our steak review anyway. So we're going to go ahead and cook these things up, and give you a few more tips while we're going here. So alright. So when you cook your porterhouse, or anything really with a fat for that matter, it's always nice to sear the fat first. It's really good. You can spread that round. You don't need to add a whole lot of oil. Like fat sort of creates its own oil, its own juices to cook in. So we're going to go ahead and sear that fat off. We're going to do that with a few of our steaks here. We're going to do that with the rump as well. Also the rib fillet. So sear a bit of that off at the same time. Right guys, so we got our steak all cooked up here, as you can see. We got a nice sear off on a few of them too. So you look at the fat. We've really seared off the fat. That's key when you're cooking a good steak. You want to sear that fat off. Now, we haven't gone a particular grade in each steak. I think our porterhouse, we tried to go for a bit more of a rare to medium rare in the middle. The rib fillet, we'll try and go to more medium, and the rump, it sort of depends, because we had these cut at all different sizes, so we cooked them all at the same time. We're not focusing on cook times at the moment. I just wanted to give you a good idea on which steak to eat for a particular meal, so we'll get more onto that. Now, first off, I think I should give you a rough idea on how much this stuff costs. So if you're going down to the butcher shop and you're looking for a steak that you want to cook up for dinner, and you're not sure on the cost, or you don't want to overspend. Nowadays, you want to save as much money as you can. You want to get the best value for what you're buying. So I'm going to give you a cheapest to most expensive out of these steaks, and then after that's done, I'm going to give you my personal favourite and my least favourite, just to give you an idea that price doesn't always matter. That's not the case. It could be your preferences or what steak's going to benefit you the most. So we'll start with the price. So with these steaks, it could vary at different butcher shops due to specials that could be on that week, but we're going to go from a market price here. The cheapest steak that we have here would be your rump steak. So once again, cheapest doesn't mean the worst. It's always a preference thing. It's due to demand. So a lot of it is demand. At the same time, a lot of it could be tenderness. But see, rump steak would be your cheapest cut of steak out of these ones. Just cook that through. That'd be a nice chew, that one. Second cheapest would be your porterhouse. So that's above your rump usually in price. Once again, like I said before, it's off the T-bone, so you get on your hind quarter, you've got your T-bone. That is the large part of fillet on your T-bone steak. Your eye fillet is the smaller part. Once again, the porterhouse steak is a very high protein cut of steak. So if you're chasing a high protein intake for your New Year's resolution diets, porterhouse steak is the one to go. I think we've cooked that perfectly to our preferences. A little bit of pink in the middle there. Not a whole lot of blood. Plenty of flavour. Porterhouse is the second cheapest out of these ones. So moving on to the third, which would be our rib fillet. Lovely cut of meat. Once again, you got the best of both worlds. It's got the flavour with the fat, the tenderness. It's an all-round great steak. So you can't really go wrong. If you see this stuff on special rib fillet, I would take advantage of that anywhere you are, because you can't go wrong. Now we have our eye fillet. I'll cut that in half for you so you can see that. Eye fillet is, in my opinion, best cooked. You want to see some red in the middle. You don't want to overcook this because it's plenty tender, and I think that's cooked pretty good. You don't want to make a quality tender steak like an eye fillet go to shit by overcooking it, or you want to see a bit of red in the middle. Like there's nothing wrong with that. Obviously it's a preference thing once again, but eye fillet is probably the most expensive steak you will find in a butcher shop. So there you have it. That's the most cheapest to expensive out of the steaks we've got. Now I am aware that there is plenty more steaks you can get. You got your blade steak, your chuck steak. There's a few more. If you're a butcher, get on there and chuck in the comments, like whatever. But these are the quality steaks you'll find in a butcher shop. Like I'm the quality. If you go to a butcher shop and you say you're having a barbecue, I want a steak, they're not going to suggest a blade steak or a chuck steak. That's more stewing meat. So they're gonna give you these options. T-bone would usually be in here as well, but we see no point in doing a T-bone when you have eye fillet and porterhouse, which are the two components that make up a T-bone. So now we're going to do my personal opinion. I get a lot of people ask me all the time on my channel, what is your favourite cut of meat or favourite cut of steak? I'll go my least to my most favourite, just to give you an idea of what I like. But my least favourite, and this doesn't mean it's a bad steak, once again, it's a preference thing, we're all different, so my least favourite here would be the cheapest cut of steak, which is your rump steak. Now, this doesn't mean I don't like it, it's just my least favourite out of these. It's once again, it's a very versatile steak. You can use this for a bit of, if you get it in a wider piece, you can use it for kebabs, you can use it for anything, steak burgers. It's a classic cut of steak. Now, that's my least favourite, only because I don't feel like it's quite as tender as what I would like to eat, and the fat can sometimes be very thick around the edges, especially if it's not taken care of, when they're trimming, or it can be left a little bit unattended, if you know what I mean. Like it's a cheap cut, so not many butchers will waste a whole lot of time on it. But if you go to a good local butcher shop, they'll always have this stuff displayed nicely anyway. But moving up to my second favourite, my second least favourite, would probably have to be the eye fillet. Now, this shows that price doesn't really matter, especially in my opinion, but I think the eye fillet, it's a very tender cut of steak, but there's minimal flavour. There's not a whole lot of flavour, in my opinion. It's lean, it's juicy, but you don't get the fat flavour through it like I enjoy in a steak. I like to taste a little bit of fat. Fat is flavour, and I think people overlook a lot of fat. They think it's extremely bad for you because there's fat around the edge of your steak. And I'm not a health professional, but I'll tell you that's bullshit. Like if there's people online you're listening to saying that fat's incredibly bad for you, I think you need to watch someone else, because fat's where all the flavour's at, and at the end of the day, animal protein that's king. Anything that comes off the animal is pretty freaking good to eat, so I don't mind a bit of fat in that. Now, that's my second least favourite steak. I just don't feel like you get the flavour out of an eye fillet. But moving on to my third most sought after, I like the rib fillet. It's a great cut of meat. Like I said in the video, it's got the best of both worlds. You got the fat, you got the flavour, and the tenderness that you get out of your eye fillet. Like there's tenderness in that. It's a great steak, and I think if you were to make some steak burgers, or like you were going to a barbecue, you can get this stuff sometimes a little bit cheaper, especially like I said, if it's on special, I'd definitely take advantage of it, because it's a very easy easy cut too. If you're buying this whole, you're buying it by the bulk. It's a very easy sliceable steak. You can slice it to your preference, any thickness you'd like. And as you can see here, if you had a round piece like that, and you got some bread rolls, some nice buttered bread rolls, that will go perfect on a bread roll. It just fits, it looks good, it's a very uniform style steak. And once again, it's a high value steak. So if you see this stuff cheap, I'd take advantage of that. I'd buy it. Very nice steak, but not quite my favourite. My favourite cut of steak would have to be the porterhouse. So the porterhouse steak, like I've said before, very high in protein. I love my protein. I feel like it's a very, very good cut of steak, and you get the flavour of the fat around the edges. So if you sear that off properly and you cook it in its own juice, you get the flavour through it. It's majority of it is pretty lean, so you're not just getting a mouthful of fat. It's very lean. The protein's high. You can't go wrong with the porterhouse, in my opinion. Not the absolute most tenderness that you're going to get out of an eye fillet, but for flavour and just because I feel like this it's priced too. You get your money's worth out of a porterhouse. You can get this stuff very cheap sometimes too, depends where you go. Once again, if it's on special, take advantage of it, because you could really cook a nice dinner out of a porterhouse steak. It's a very good cut of meat. So there you have it. That's a few little tips. Maybe if you go to your butcher shop next time and you're not 100% on what to spend your money on, and you got a crowd coming around, you want to impress them a bit, you don't know which steaks to buy, just watch the video. There you go. You've got plenty of options there. Now, stay tuned for my next video, because coming up to the start of, we're in the start of 2024 now. There's going to be a lot of New Year's resolutions. A lot of people aren't sure on which meat to eat. They'll come in and, don't think because you're going to a local butcher shop that everything out of the butcher shop's going to be good to eat. I don't want to knock other shops at all, but you will get a lot of people tell you just because if you want to eat a cabana or you want to eat your salamis and all that sort of stuff, it's easy for kids' lunches, but just because they tell you it's got pork and beef in it and all these good grades of meat doesn't mean it doesn't have all this processed shit in it. Like a quick example of your highly processed meats, your cabanas, your sausages. It's not all good meat. There's the good meat that goes into it, but there's also a lot of crap that gets put into this stuff. There's chemicals, there's the powders that you put with it. I'm not saying it's going to harm you. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying that you can't eat these things, but if you're going to focus on a lean diet and a healthy diet in 2024, you don't want to eat all this processed shit. I would stay away from a lot of that sort of stuff, like your sausages, cabanas, salamis. You need to start eating whole foods like these. You get a good steak recipe, you add your own spices and whatnot. Eat whole food, eat steak. Stay away from all that processed crap. You don't need that. Alright, that's us done for today.